In a world where gods ruled the skies, monsters lurked in the shadows, and heroes dared to challenge fate itself, one story has endured for thousands of years. This is not just history, it is the legend of Greek mythology, where every battle, every betrayal, and every triumph shaped the world we know today. Welcome to Tales Unfolded, where ancient myths and timeless stories come to life. If you love history, mystery, and epic legends, you're in the right place. Let's begin our journey. Get cozy, settle in, and let's begin. In the beginning, there was no Olympus, no earth, no sea, no sky. There was only chaos. And chaos was not the kind of chaos modern tongues describe. Disorder, confusion, frenzy. It was older than language itself. Chaos was a yawning void, a gaping nothingness without form or direction. It was not evil, nor good, nor even neutral. It simply was. From that ancient nothing came the first stirrings of existence. Gaia, the earth, vast and unshaking. Tartarus, the abyss beneath the earth, dark and dreadful. And Eros, the force of love and desire, the binding agent of all future creation. These were not gods, as we think of them. Not yet, but elemental truths given form. Then came Nyx, the night, clothed in a shadow so thick even chaos recoiled. She was followed by Erebus, the darkness of the underworld, who would dwell beside her in that early silence. From the union of night and darkness came Ether, the pure upper air breathed by the gods, and Hemera, the day, who from the beginning was fated to chase her mother endlessly across the sky. Thus the cycle of night and day was born, not through science, but through myth, through a family of strange invisible titans who lit and dimmed the sky with each passing hour. Gaia, the earth herself, did not lie idle. She was patient and fertile, and from her own body she brought forth Uranus, the sky, vast and star-struck. He was both her son and her consort, and when he arched over her, stretching across the heavens, the world found its first shape, a domed sky above a broad and endless plain. Gaia also birthed the mountains, tall and wild, and Pontus, the sea, who surged with a will of his own before ships or sea monsters ever touched his waters. Together, earth and sky became the first great pair, and their union brought forth the Titans, the first generation of powerful beings who would rule the cosmos long before Zeus and his kin rose to power. There were 12 Titans in all, 6 sons and 6 daughters, each vast and elemental in their own right. Oceanus, the encircling river. Hyperion, the Lord of Light. Cous, the Inquirer. Crus, the constellation bearer. Iapetus, the ancestor of men. And Cronus, youngest and most cunning. Among the daughters, Theia, shining mother of the sun and moon. Rhea, future mother of gods. Themis, embodiment of divine law. Mnemosyne, the memory of all things. Phoebe, the radiant one. And Tethys, the nourishing sea. But Gaia's womb was not finished with them. She bore monstrous children as well, beings of strength and dread. First came the Cyclopes, Brontes, Sterops, and Argent, each with a single eye, burning like a forge in the center of their brow. They were the smiths of lightning, strong and simple, and they feared no god nor giant. Then came the Hecatonchires, the 100-handed ones, each of them enormous and terrible to behold, with 50 heads and 100 arms each, capable of stirring the very foundations of the world when enraged. Uranus, though lord of the sky, trembled at the sight of these monstrous offspring. Ashamed and frightened by their grotesque strength, he forced them back into Gaia's womb, the depths of earth itself, and sealed them there, hidden away beneath layers of rock and grief. Gaia groaned beneath their weight. The earth, once proud and nurturing, now suffered with every breath. It was in this pain that she began to skin. But that is a story for another day. For now, remember this. In the oldest age, before law or justice, before sword or plow, the world was made not with hands, but With force and union and grief, chaos birthed the first forms. But it was Gaia, the great mother, who gave them ground to stand upon. The union of Gaia and Uranus, earth and sky, was the first great marriage of the cosmos. It was not a marriage of altars or witnesses, but of necessity and nature. The sky stretched over the earth, holding her tightly, pressing her beneath his star-strewn body night after night. From their joining came the Titans and other mighty offspring, but also a deep and growing sorrow. For Uranus, though proud and vast, was a jealous and fearful father. He saw in the monstrous children, Gaia bore not strength, but a threat to his dominion. He looked upon the Cyclopes and the 100-handed giants with revulsion, not wonder, and with swift, cruel judgment, he thrust them back into Gaia's womb, deep into the belly of the earth, where no light reached and no voice could echo. Gaia groaned beneath their weight. It was not only the agony of bearing them within her again, but the betrayal of her consort of sky, who should have cherished their children as she did. Night after night, Uranus descended upon her, pressing down the heavens to meet the earth. Blind to her pain and deaf to her grief, she could endure no longer. And so, from her own flesh, she fashioned a weapon, not of bronze or iron, for such things had not yet been dreamed, but a great sickle of unyielding flint, jagged as truth and sharp as vengeance. Then she went to her Titan sons, the firstborn and mightiest among her children, and laid bare her suffering. Your father has wronged me, she said. He has caged your brothers. He has silenced the womb that bore you. Who among you will aid me? One by one they turned away, fearful of their father's might. Only Cronus, the youngest, the shrewdest, the one with watchful eyes and a patient heart, stepped forward. I will do it, he said. Give me the blade. So Gaia set the trap. She waited for Uranus to descend, as he always did, laying himself across her in the dark, and from the shadows Cronus sprang. With a steady hand and no hesitation, he brought the sickle down upon his father. The sky shook with Uranus's cry as the blade bit deep, severing the source of his power. Cronus cast the bloodied flesh into the sea, and from the crimson foam that rose upon the waves, something new was born. A figure of impossible beauty, terrible and irresistible in equal measure. From that white froth came Aphrodite, goddess of love and desire, who would later cause kings to fall and empires to burn. She stepped ashore at Cyprus, radiant and serene, untouched by the violence of her origin. But Gaia's vengeance did not end with blood. From the droplets that fell upon the earth sprang other beings, the Furies, cloaked in shadow and vengeance, who would haunt oath-breakers and kinslayers until the end of days. The giants, who in time would rise up against the gods themselves, and the Malaya, nymphs of the ash trees, guardians of the wild and the old ways. Uranus, wounded and dethroned, vanished into the heavens, leaving the world to his children. Before he fled, it is said, he spoke a final curse, one that would ring through time like a bell. Just as I was overthrown by my son, so too shall he be overthrown by his own. It was not a prophecy he invented, but a truth Gaia had already whispered, and Cronus heard it well. He took the sky's throne and wrapped himself in power, but from the moment he grasped it, he began to fear what his father had warned. Thus ended the reign of Uranus, the first king of the cosmos, and began the age of the Titans. Yet already, in the womb of time, the next storm was stirring. With Uranus cast down, and the sky no longer pressed so tightly upon the earth, the world breathed anew. The Titans, freed from their yoke, now stood tall beneath the heavens, and Cronus, the youngest and most cunning among them, claimed dominion over all. He was not a god of chaos or cruelty, as his father had been in the end, but he ruled with a cautious and suspicious heart. The sickle he had used to bring down Uranus remained hidden, buried in the earth, or cast into the sea, its blade remembered, but unseen, like a secret sin. Cronus had delivered his mother from torment and his siblings from imprisonment. Yet From the very moment he sat the throne of the cosmos, his mind was troubled by the prophecy that had driven him to rebellion. The words of his dying father echoed through him like a second heartbeat that he, too, would be cast down by his own child. So Cronus took a wife, as kings must. He chose Rhea, his sister, a Titaness of gentle strength and deep wisdom, though her name would one day be spoken in the same breath as pain. Ogathar. They ruled through a time that later poets would remember as a golden age, a time when mortals, newly created, lived in peace, free from suffering, untouched by winter or war, and the fruits of the earth ripened without need for toil. It was an age before kings had armies, before men built walls or worshipped temples, when justice moved unseen among humankind and no one locked their doors. But such peace as the world has always known does not last. In time, Rhea began to bear children, and as each was born, Cronus remembered his father's curse. He did not hesitate. The moment Rhea placed each newborn in his arms, first Hestia, then Demeter, then Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, he opened wide his jaws and swallowed them whole. Not a trace was left, not a cry, not a cradle, only the knowledge that they were gone, hidden within their father's belly like seeds in winter soil. He told Rhea it was necessary that he would not suffer the same fate as Uranus, that the throne must be protected. Rhea, though proud and strong, was powerless against him. She wept, but her tears changed nothing. 5 times she gave birth, and 5 times she lost her children to the hunger of her husband's fear. But the 6th time she resolved to act. When she felt the child stir in her womb, she did not go to Cronus. She fled instead to the island of Crete, where the mountains met the sky, and deep caves opened beneath the earth. There, hidden among shepherds and nymphs, she gave birth to her youngest son, Zeus, and from the moment of his birth, Rhea knew he was different. His cry shook the trees. His eyes opened before his first breath. And when he grasped her finger, he held it with the strength of fate itself. To deceive Cronus, Rhea wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and presented it to him with trembling hands. He swallowed it greedily, thinking the danger had passed, but beneath Mount Ida, the infant Zeus was nursed in secret. He was guarded by the Curates, warriors who danced and clashed their shields to drown out the sound of his cries, and fed by the goat Amalthea, whose milk gave him strength beyond measure. And as Zeus grew, so did the storm that would one day break the world. Yet for now, the age of Cronus held. The sky was high, the earth was green, and the Titans ruled from their thrones, oblivious to the gathering wind. But deep within Cronus, 5 children stirred in the dark, and far to the west, a child born in secrecy watched the stars and waited in the hidden folds of Mount Ida, where the air was thin and the wind whispered ancient names through stone and pine. Zeus grew to manhood, raised in secret, far from his father's gaze. He learned of the world not through books or scrolls, but from the silence of the high peaks, the rustling of leaves, and the cautious stories murmured by his guardians in firelight. He drank the milk of the divine goat, Amalthea, who had nourished him from birth, and from her broken horn, torn by accidental omen, was born the cornucopia, symbol of endless bounty. When Amalthea died, Zeus hung her hide among the stars in her honor, and her memory became part of the sky he would one day command. But he was not born to stargazing or solitude. The blood in his veins was thick with prophecy, and his bones carried the weight of rebellion. As he came of age, Gaia herself began to stir. She remembered the betrayal of Cronus, the pain of her imprisoned sons, the 100-handed ones, and the Cyclopes buried deep in Tartarus. Her vengeance had not ended with Uranus. It had only been delayed. With words as old as stone, she whispered truth into Zeus's dreams, and in his waking hours, she guided his steps. First, she led him to Metis, the Titaness of wisdom, whose counsel was shrewd and whose loyalty leaned toward the future. With Metis's aid, Zeus fashioned a plan to strike against Cronus. A king of Titans and time would require more than strength. It would demand cunning. Zeus returned in disguise to the house of his father, and there, with Metis's craft, he offered Cronus a potion laced in wine, bittersweet and thick as honey. The drink stirred the old Titan's gut, and at last, with a shudder and a groan, Cronus vomited forth the children he had swallowed long ago. They came not as infants, but full grown and gleaming, clad in the strength of gods, reborn into a world already poised for war. First, Hestia, hearth and flame. Then Demeter, goddess of the grain. Then regal Hera, proud and sharp-eyed. Then Hades, lord of the dead. And at last Poseidon, master of the deep. The 6 siblings stood together for the first time as one, and looked to the throne that had cast them into darkness. They would not forget. But Cronus was not without allies. The Titans rallied to him, his brothers and sisters gathering atop Mount Othrys, the old seat of power in the south. Oceanus remained apart, too old or too wise for blood feuds. But the others, Coas, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, took up arms. So began the war. The poets call it Titanomachy, the clash of Titans and Olympians. A war that tore across the heavens and split the earth to its core. For 10 years the battle raged without end. The sky darkened with storm and smoke. Thunder and fire echoed across the mountains. And the world below, still young and silent, watched in dread as its masters fought for the right to rule. The Titans held Othrys tall and time-worn, while Zeus and his kin made their stand upon Mount Olympus, a peak still unscarred by war. The battles were terrible and unrelenting. Lightning tore open the skies and tidal waves swallowed islands whole. Volcanoes bled fire and winds howled like wolves. At times, the war seemed endless, neither side able to land the final blow. But Gaia, ever watchful, knew that the balance could not tip without what had been long buried. She counseled Zeus once more. If he were to win, he must descend into Tartarus and free his monstrous uncles, the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires, whom Cronus had kept locked in chains out of fear. With his siblings beside him, Zeus broke the gates of the underworld and released the imprisoned powers. The Cyclopes, grateful and eager, gifted Zeus his greatest weapons. The thunderbolt, the symbol of sky and storm. To Poseidon they gave the trident, with which he would command the seas. And to Hades, a helm of darkness that would make him unseen. The Hecatonchires, giants with 100 hands, joined the fight at last, hurling mountains like stones and battering the Titans with the fury of ancient things unbound. With these allies, the tide turned. The Olympians pressed forward with a fury no Titan could match. Cronus, proud and unyielding, fought to the last. But the prophecy, as always, unfolded without mercy. The Titans fell. One by one they were driven down, cast from the high places of the earth. Zeus did not slay them, he imprisoned them, as his father had done before. Deep into Tartarus they were hurled, bound in chains forged by the 100-handed ones, behind bronze gates that would never rust or break. Only a few escaped that fate. Prometheus and Epimetheus, who had sided with the gods, and Themis, who foresaw the justice of their rule. So ended the reign of the Titan. The sky cleared, and the world, scarred by fire and war, began to heal. The throne passed to Zeus, not by birthright, but by might and wisdom and fate fulfilled. Yet, even as he claimed the heavens, the shadow of Cronus' curse lingered behind him, like the echo of an old song. For power, once seized, must always be watched, and no ruler, god or mortal, sits secure forever. When the war was over, and the world lay quiet beneath the sky once more, the victors stood amidst the rubble of creation. The Titans were chained in the depths of Tartarus, their groans swallowed by that black abyss from which no echo returned. The old order had been broken, but with the storm of war ended, the gods faced a new challenge, perhaps greater than any battle, to rule. For conquest may be won with fire and fury, but rule demands judgment, patience, and division. The world was wide and wild, and filled with powers both known and yet unnamed. It could not be held by one alone. Zeus, eldest among the gods, now born again, stood at the center of this new age. Though not the firstborn, he was first in might, first in cunning, and first to move when action was demanded. But the old laws, carved not on stone, but into the bones of the cosmos itself, did not grant him sole dominion. He had two brothers, both tempered by war, and made strong in their own right. Poseidon, who had driven the sea to foam in his wrath, and Hades, who had worn the helm of darkness and moved unseen through battlefield and cavern alike. They, too, had shed blood, taken risks, and suffered loss. The throne of the cosmos could not belong to Zeus alone, lest the seeds of war be sown anew, this time among brothers. And so the three gathered, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and cast lots to divide the realms of the world. Not through bickering or force, but by fate itself did the dice fall. This was no child's game. The casting of lots was sacred, guided by the same power that had spoken through Gaia's whispers and shaped the course of the Titan. They threw the bones and waited. When they landed, the world was drawn into three great dominions. To Zeus fell the sky, the broad heavens, the air between stars and peaks. He became Lord of thunder and rain, master of storm and cloud, and the undisputed king of Olympus. His voice would echo in thunderclaps, his fury would blaze in lightning, and the eagle became his herald, soaring high above all. 2. Poseidon fell the sea, deep and restless, full of mystery and monsters. He took the oceans, the rivers, and every spring that bubbled from the earth. With his trident, he could shatter cliffs and stir the tides to rage or calm. Beneath the waves, he built a palace of coral and gold, and there he ruled not only over fish and current, but over creatures older than time, sea serpents, leviathans, and things whose names had never been spoken aloud. 2. Hades fell the underworld, the land of the dead. It was not a prize most would have chosen, but Hades took it with quiet resolve. He ruled the shadowed realm with stern dignity, his kingdom hidden beneath the earth, where the sun did not shine. There he became master of the shades, the judge of mortal souls, and guardian of wealth hidden in the deeps. Gems, metals, and secrets lost to time. Though men feared his name and whispered it only when necessary, Hades kept the balance between life and death, and it was said he never once broke the laws he was sworn to uphold. The earth itself, Gaia's own flesh, was left as a common realm, shared by all. The mountains belonged to no one. The fields were roamed by mortals and spirits alike, and the forests grew wild under no single banner. It was a realm in between, where gods might walk, and mortals might see them. But it was also where ambition brewed, and where fate would continue to work its quiet will. Thus, the world was ordered. Sky, sea, and underworld. The three brothers, now kings in their own realms, swore not to war among themselves, lest the world break anew. They built their thrones and gathered their followers. On Mount Olympus, high above the clouds, Zeus called the gods to council. There beside him stood his sisters, Hera, proud and sharp as winter ice, Demeter, whose steps awakened spring, and Hestia, ever burning at the hearth of every home. And others came, new and old, Athena, born from wisdom and war, Apollo, golden and far-seeing, Artemis, silent and swift, Ares, bloody-handed, Hermes, fleet of foot and mind, Hephaestus, limping but brilliant, and Aphrodite, whose smile could unravel kings. It was the beginning of a new age, the age of Olympus. But though the thrones had been set and the realms divided, the world would not stay still for long. The gods, for all their power, were not immune to pride, nor love, nor rage. And the mortals, who now began to rise across the lands, would bring their own stories, their own wars, and their own share of sorrow. The heavens had been won. But peace is never simple when God sit the throne. When the smoke of war faded and the world was cast once more in sunlight, Mount Olympus became the seat of a new and glittering court. the Titans had ruled from Mount Othrys in the south, harsh, ancient, and wrapped in storm. But Olympus, in the north, stood higher still, its summit crowned in cloud and crowned in myth. The mountain was not merely a place, but a threshold, a place where sky met stone. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this story. This was Tales Unfolded, where every secret finds a voice. Stay tuned, because a new and even more mysterious story is coming very soon. If you enjoyed this tale, please give it a like, leave a thoughtful comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss what's next. Until then, stay curious, and see you in the next story.